Hi guys, it's Tamara coming back at you with another video. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to insert this video today, which is a Wednesday. And as I've stated in the past, I have some videos for Mondays and some other videos for Fridays. But then sometimes I will give you a Wednesday video just to check in with you and give you some tips and give you some tools and techniques, or answer questions, or address certain topics that I did not address on Monday. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk a little bit about post-traumatic growth. And I'm sure some of you thought, hey, she forgot to mention that during the month and a half conversation on trauma, and I did not. I wanted to save that for last. And it just so happens that last Friday I started a conversation on toxic parents and toxic parenting. But in this video, we're just going to go ahead and talk a little bit about post-traumatic growth, because I think it's going to be important even to this new topic that we're going to be discussing. So the benefits for you in this video today is that you're going to be able to identify what exactly is post-traumatic growth and what should I look for to show me that I have actually grown. So I'm going to break it down into 4 things for you, and I'm going to define it as I usually do. So you might be wondering, what is post-traumatic growth? Well, post-traumatic growth is basically the idea that you have gone through a traumatic situation in your life, which has resulted in post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder. Having experienced that traumatic situation brought you to a place of brokenness. It brought you to a place of not being able to function in your daily life and not being able to process things around you, kind of being in a fog or a nebulous state, getting stuck in a rut and not being able to climb out, feeling that you are sinking emotionally and psychologically, feeling depressed, feeling that there's no purpose to live, right? Having suicidal thoughts possibly, maybe even having homicidal thoughts as well. Having thoughts representative of learned helplessness, which I talk a lot about on this channel. I will post the video, my most recent video on learned helplessness, down in the comments section for you. But you may be feeling feelings of helplessness. You may be unmotivated, right? You might feel what we psychologists call anhedonia, right? Which is a lack of pleasure in things once enjoyed. So you went through a traumatic experience. You've experienced some, if not all, of those things. And now you are at a place of calm. That place of calm does not mean that you are not still processing the trauma. It also doesn't mean that you are not struggling with the trauma. It might just mean that you are at a place of calm. You are at a place of acceptance in some way. There are stages of grief, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit at the end of the video here, just so that you'll have them. But there are stages of grief that you may go through during this post-traumatic growth period. Or you might actually go through this process, the grief process, prior to the post-traumatic growth stage. It just depends on what that trauma was, how you tend to process things, and how you tend to cope with them as well. So you've gotten to the end of the trauma or your experience of that traumatic situation. And maybe therapy worked, maybe it didn't work. Maybe you've learned to accept some of it, maybe you haven't. Maybe you've learned to see it through a different lens, or maybe you haven't. Wherever you are, post-traumatic growth is possible. Post-traumatic growth is the idea that you've gone through a traumatic situation, you've processed things, you've gone through things, and now you're at the end where you're not always ready to accept, but you at least can talk about the incident without breaking apart. You can mentally and emotionally process the incident without losing control. You have assigned some kind of meaning, or you may feel that God has given you some kind of meaning to that particular situation. You may also feel that you're now capable of explaining what happened to yourself in that situation, or maybe somebody else. The post-traumatic growth stage is a stage of learning. It's a stage of once being a caterpillar, and now I'm moving into becoming a butterfly. That's the post-traumatic growth stage. Now, during this post-traumatic growth stage, you may go through 5 stages of grief. And you can go, in and out of these stages multiple times. But the order that it's usually in is denial, anger, depression, bargaining, and acceptance. Okay, so denial, this didn't happen to me. Anger, how could something like this happen to me? Why can't I be like anybody else? Depression, right? Anhedonia, loss of pleasure in things once enjoyed, low motivation, depressed mood, sad mood, not sleeping or sleeping too much, not eating or not eating enough or eating too much. Whatever the issue may be, you're stuck in that depression stage, right? The next one is bargaining. Well, maybe if I donate a lot of my money, God will take this pain away. Or maybe if I adopt so many kids, I don't have to suffer this trauma any longer. Maybe if I just marry him, my life will be better and God will bless me and then I don't have to suffer anymore, right? Bargaining. If I do this, maybe I'll get this in return. And then the final stage is acceptance. Okay, I know this has happened. I'm going to accept that this has happened to me. All right, so those are the 5 stages of grief. And of course, somebody can go from acceptance to anger, anger to depression, and depression to denial again. So you can move around depending on what your trauma is, okay? So post-traumatic growth sometimes brings you to the grief stage. Once that part and stage is over, I do strongly believe that once you learn to grapple with the issues, deal with the issues, work out the issues in your heart and your mind, go through the grief process, that you can actually get to a place of acceptance. The place of acceptance with post-traumatic growth is this, that I know I've gone through all of this pain, and I know I've gone through a lot processing this pain, but now that I'm on the other side of the mountain, so to speak, I'm okay. I'm going to miss maybe some aspects of me, or I'm going to feel overwhelmed because of some aspects of the situation, but I think I'm going to be okay, right? That's the post-traumatic growth stage of acceptance. I think I'm going to be okay. I'm just going to need to hold on to an anchor. I'm just going to need coping skills. I'm just going to need this, that, and that, right? That is the stage of acceptance. Post-traumatic growth is something that may or may not happen for someone who has experienced a lot of complex grief and complex trauma. Post-traumatic growth, if it does occur, it may take a while before that person is able to finally accept what has happened to them. I want you to kind of perceive and look at post-traumatic growth as a stage of necessity. I think that we need to get to that stage of post-traumatic growth in order to find some sort of meaning in our lives once we have been hurt, once we have been traumatized, once we have experienced that grief. Post-traumatic growth stage is a necessity. It's a necessity. It's a necessity. We need it, right? Because if we don't get to the stage of post-traumatic growth, then our suffering has been wasted. We haven't learned anything. We haven't grown. We haven't matured. We haven't learned to experience pain and cope better with it, right? So post-traumatic growth truly is a stage that must happen. Now, you may be wondering, well, how do I get to that stage, right? Can I go to therapy and get to that stage? Can I will myself to get to that stage? My answer is no. I don't think you can will yourself to get to that stage. I don't think a therapist can force you into that stage. I honestly believe that the stage of post-traumatic growth follows a psychological and emotional acceptance of what has happened, right? It follows that emotional and psychological acceptance of what has happened. Until that happens, there is no post-traumatic growth, right? So if you're still struggling with symptoms, if you're still struggling with the reality of something, if you're still denying something, if you're still, flipping something and tossing something over in your mind and you can't accept it, I do not believe that the stage of post-traumatic growth can occur. I do not believe that we can force ourselves into that stage of post-traumatic growth. It really is I teach my clients that the stage of post-traumatic growth really is a process that happens on its own. We can't force it. Just like we can't force somebody to go to therapy. We can't force somebody to develop and grow from their painful or traumatic situation. All we can do is hope that throughout time, throughout work, hard work, throughout possible counseling, throughout daily life, right? Throughout the mind's and the body's natural resilience to kick in, right? Throughout that process, the resilience process, that we will finally get to post-traumatic growth. Without being able to experience all those things completely, I do not think the post-traumatic growth is possible. We cannot force it, we can only wait for it. And that's the way that I tend to explain post-traumatic growth to my clients. All right, guys, thanks so much for being with me today. I encourage you to give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you. Also, hit the subscribe button. I believe it's over on this side. Hit the subscribe button if you want to stay tuned for some of the videos that I'm going to be posting in the coming weeks. We're going to have a month and a half of discussions about unhealthy parent-child relationships. And I'm not necessarily talking about a child. I'm talking about you as the adult child, right? So let's say you have a relationship with your mother or your father and it's unhealthy and you're an adult and you absolutely despise your childhood. That's what we're going to be talking about. I'm also going to be talking about parents who are emotionally detached and toxic as well. So stay tuned for that. If you have some questions about post-traumatic growth or you'd like me to kind of engage you in conversation about this, post your comments and your questions in the comment section below. I'm always happy to connect with you guys there and answer all of your questions. In the meantime, guys, I wish you all the best and I will see you on Friday. Bye-bye.